I don't enjoy having openings on my videos. I prefer to get just into it, but this one will have an opening. So, if you don't want to sit through that, though I think has some useful information, go to the time shown here. That'll put you right where the action begins. But otherwise, this all began all the way back in spring at 12:22 a.m. I had a fresh cup of Monk's Blend tea and a simple goal. I shall read Kanon, the visual novel, and make a video on it for 500 subs, even though most of my subs aren't here for anything anime or manga. But it doesn't matter, because I wanted to do it. And so, here we are, all the way almost to September. In August, this has taken me 4-ish months to work out, between reading, note-taking, script-making, and now recording. Ha ha ha. Oh, man. In any case, thank you for being here. Jeepers. I was going to make this for 500 subs, like I said, but, look how that's turned out. So, actual important things. This is more of an audio-based experience. I will be appearing in the flesh a few times to talk about things. Along with that, too, there might be the odd visual gag I'll throw in, but this is mostly focused on making it all sound good, so you can just listen to it while doing other things, because this one's going to be a little longer. Along with that, I played a patched version of the original 1999 edition of Kanon, all the way back when it was released. It's older than me. I was playing some English patch, I don't know which one, kind of broke when doing Shiori's, but that's okay, it was good for the rest of them. You should go read it. They just released a new edition for the 25th anniversary on Steam. The graphics are a little better, and it's, I guess, an official translation, so go look at that. It's pretty neat. But I didn't play that, and I didn't take footage from that. Also, spoiler warning. There are spoilers everywhere, and I forgot to say it in the initial recording. Enter/watch at your own risk. But with that, let's talk about our main character, our dear Yuuichi. Yuuichi Azawa is the Iceman. He's always cold, very cold. I relate to him. But in any case, he's our main protagonist, and so it's best to start with him, you know? He's present in every route because he's the main character. And throughout every route, he's generally very consistently portrayed. Now, I normally like using wikis for my videos, right? And I've come across a disturbing trend in Yuuichi's here. You see, most give correct information. But let's quote the wiki really quick. Yuuichi is shown to be friendly and outgoing, and though he acts as nice as he can, he has yet to learn the sensitivity of women. This is a lie. Yuuichi is a rat man. He's a bit of an asshole, and for this, we love him, or at least I do. And also to disprove that last part, as Yuuichi says, this macho exterior conceals a delicate understanding of feminine tastes. And, to be quite honest, his claim is a bit of a lie. That last bit certainly isn't true at all. I found, while reading through the visual novel, that Yuuichi generally tends to only care about himself and the current route's girl. And otherwise, he's a menace to practically everyone around him. Rude, an immense amount of smug snark, general assholery, even thuggish at times Yuuichi can be. Sometimes I gotta say, I do feel a little bad for his victims, especially Yu and not her route. His teasings, this is still a little mean, but it's nicer in that. But outside of it, he is the rat. He is the rat man. He's a bit of a dick. Though, I will say, he's really funny. And he does generally apologize if he feels like he's gone too far. Also, as I mentioned in the very beginning, he struggles with the new cold that he finds himself in all throughout the story. And once again, I really relate to him. Jeepers. When I began reading this and writing this, it was like late spring, and it was still very cold. Hell, the 1 year I spent out of Ohio forever thinned my blood, and the chill of winter is cold upon me. It was pretty realistic while reading this VN. Though he does also state that he doesn't like either temperature extreme of hot or cold, and that's also very relatable. as now as I'm recording, it is unbearably hot with my AC off, so that the audio's okay. Well, anyway, besides all this, he's a schemer. He's an ideas guy, and I like that. You see, he plots out plans that require pontification on the part of a professional protagonist, which he is. In any case, he also tends to woo the women. Through this? Kinda? Although we'll be getting into all that in a moment here. Oh yeah, also, he is consistently faceless in the visual novel. However, in the anime, oh dear, I didn't expect Yuuichi to look like that. I mean, it's not bad, but to be quite honest, the entire game I kind of imagined him as Hayes from Anonymous Agony, and I still can't get that idea out of my head. I think it's really funny. So in my mind, yeah, that's what he is. And speaking of, listen, I'll give out some Yuuichi quotes that really struck me. Maybe they kind of tainted my perception. I make a point of treating both sexes equally when they attack me. Look, marriage isn't like, ooh, romantic. It's just drudgery and then divorce. Get prenups, people. Yeah, Yuuichi is pretty based, pretty cool. But it's been 7 years since Yuuichi has been to this town. In this situation he finds himself in, alone with his cousin and aunt. So not so much alone. But he's forgotten much in that time. In fact, he's forgotten almost everything. It's snowing. Pure white snow swirls down from the overcast sky. A damp wooden bench. Cold, clear air. I rouse my body, slumped on the bench, and correct my posture yet again. The stream of people leaving the snow-covered station has slowed to a trickle. Sighing white vapor, I glance at the town clock in the station plaza. It's 3 o'clock. It's still daylight, but I can only guess at the position of the sun beyond the thick clouds. Late. I slump back into my seat and cast the single word into the sky. I'm briefly blinded by the white mist of my frozen breath before the north wind sends it streaming away. A winter wind piercing my skin. The ever-present snow falling without end. The curtain of white flakes, which hides the sky, seems to be thickening out of spite. Once more, I disturb the air with a sigh. This time, however, the puffy steam this evokes is not the only thing that obscures my vision. A girl is bending over to peer at my face. Her head now separates me from the snowy clouds above.
Yuki. 積もってるよ.
I breathe out sharply through tight lips, expelling another cloud of vapor. That might be because I've been sitting here for 2 hours. Under the circumstances, it's a miracle that I'm not buried up to my neck.
あれ?
The girl tilts her head curiously at my words.
今何時?
3 o'clock.
びっくり.
Despite her words, she doesn't look at all surprised. Her voice is slow, feminine, and sleepy.
まだ2時くらいだと思ってたよ.
Which would only have been 1 hour late.
一つだけ聞いていい?
Go ahead.
寒くない?
I sure am. The snow was a novelty at first, but now it's just depressing me.
これ、あげる.
She hands me a can of coffee.
遅れたお詫びだよ. それと、再会のお祝い.
Is a reunion after 7 years only worth 1 can of coffee? I look again into the girl's face as I take the coffee. The can is still too hot to hold with bare hands. My numb fingertips appreciate the warmth, though.
7年。そっか。そんなに経つんだね。
Yeah. Rolling the warm can between my hands. Comparing the snowy landscape around me with the few scraps of memory I retain from my early childhood.
私の名前、まだ覚えてる？
Do you remember mine?
うん。
In the snow-covered streets. Those memories of 7 years ago, they seem only to be a breath away.
Yuuichi。
Hanako.
違うよ。
Jiro?
私、女の子。
She adopts a worried frown. Each word, like the snow which covers the ground, is filling the blank spaces of my memory. The snow falling past the girl's shoulders is getting even heavier. Okay, I think we've wasted enough time chatting.
私の名前。
Shall we get moving?
名前。
The town of 7 years ago, surrounded by the snow of 7 years ago. Let's go, Nayuki. My new life, caught like a flag in the winter wind, spreads out before me. Nayuki is a lot of things. Sleepy, a little strange, a bit of an airhead, but quick is not one of them. Nayuki is slow and steady, kind of like James May. Alright, maybe in a literal sense, she is quick. After all, she is the captain of the track team. But Nayuki likes to take her time, especially in the morning. Despite having a mountain of alarm clocks, she does not wake up easily. And it takes a Yuuichi to kick her out of bed to get her up. That or to literally break down her door. In the metaphysical sense, that is. Jeepers, Nayuki, I feel ya. It takes me an hour to get ready and awake in the morning for work. Unyu, you find this with a lot of key visual novel girls. They have this signature word or catchphrase they like to use. In this case, I found Nayuki saying quite a lot. Unyu, oh, and just you wait, there's gonna be more. There's gonna be a lot of these little words, little phrases. What else do I and Nayuki have in common? I both like coffee. Oh yeah, we're both allergic to cats despite loving them. Poor Nayuki in this case.
Neko, neko, neko.
Oh yeah, she's also a big fan of sweets, especially strawberries, whether that's in jam form or sundae form. Oh, and need I forget, I feel like in this section is important while I'm describing the Nayuki-isms of Nayuki to mention the alarm clock.
朝だよ。朝ごはん食べて学校行くよ。
This wicked, nasty beast of an alarm clock, Nayuki is very proud of. She did it herself, even though she's not good with technology. It's pretty cool. I would use it. Ah, yes. And her mother Eiko is, powerful. While she may not have the supernatural powers of her mother, there's something there. There's some preternatural sense that Nayuki has, which we'll get into a little more later. Oh yeah, also to reiterate, Nayuki is Yuuichi's cousin, and considering she has a route where you can date her, Oh yeah, final thing about Nayuki. I don't think any other girl can do this. Well, at least not very often. She can change her hairstyle. It's alarming. Alright, it is time for Nayuki's route. The story of it. And for all the routes, I'm going to speedrun these. I obviously can't go into every detail because we would be here for days. And with that too, I'll talk at various lengths for each one. It really depends on how much they made me feel or think or whatever. So they'll vary in length. Nayuki's route is all about Yuuichi reconnecting with her. It's very sweet. And just hanging out with Nayuki is awesome. She embodies the philosophy that you just gotta be cool, relax, get hip. Maybe not hip. Nayuki is not very trendy. Although, Nayuki was not always like this. Now, 7 years ago, Yuuichi leaves, and Nayuki is quite upset. Jeepers, she felt so abandoned and alone. Without her mother, she probably would have lost it. However, Yuuichi's return, the Yuuichi coming back home, has made her really happy. One of her friends, Kaori, even comments that she's never seen Nayuki this happy. Oh, bless her heart. Anyways, during her route, Yuuichi confesses to Nayuki that he likes her, not as a cousin, but as a woman. Did I mention they were cousins? Well, there's something to be said here, but I don't think I'm qualified to say it. Well, 7 years ago, just before Yuuichi left, Nayuki actually confessed her love to Yuuichi. However, due to a certain unfortunate incident, Yuuichi was not in a fit state to respond, both mentally and physically. However, in this reversal, Nayuki's a little upset because, well, shoot, that's a really mean thing to do considering past circumstances. However, after some time, she accepts Yuuichi's confession. Then there's some nice stuff for a while, and it's sweet, and it makes me smile just thinking about it. Then, Eiko gets into a car crash and is promptly sent to emergency care. And this sends Nayuki into a depression spiral. And I quote, "I'll never laugh again. I can't laugh anymore." This all eventually culminates into a really nice scene where Yuuichi proclaims that he will always be there for Nayuki. And with that really quick, there's something of note within Nayuki's route. Unless you count Eiko getting better after the car crash, there is no magical shenanigans that happens, save for the third miracle, but I don't think that counts. Or maybe it does. But either case, there's no direct magical shenanigans, as Key is apt to add into their stories. So during each route, I had a little notebook next to me, and I would sometimes jot things down. There's a lot of interesting stuff in there. But after each route, I would process everything onto a Word document, which then would be the basis for actually writing this script. But in it, I would immediately write down my thoughts just after finishing the route. So, I guess I'll read them word for word. Eiko is okay, but I wonder, once again, what would happen if they left her dead. Will she get harmed somehow in each heroine's route? In any case, this one was very sweet. The total trust Nayuki gives Yuuichi is heartwarming. I teared up a little bit. Even a little now, while writing this. She waited so long. Now, Nayuki is best girl. And this may, metaphorically, be considered blowing my load a little too early. But this is the way. Why is she best girl? Well,
just look at that long ponytail. Now we're talking.
I found Nayuki to be the most endearing and relatable out of all of the girls. While she may be slightly out of the loop when it comes to any normal human situation, she has that sense I mentioned earlier, sort of preternatural perception of things. A girl's intuition. The hidden things, unseen by normal eyes, she is sensitive to. Along with that too, her other small quirks, like announcing when every period is over, when the day is over, or when it's lunch. Her talking about how much she loves the changing seasons, but winter most of all. And even the magazine incident. Quote, "If it's you, Yuuichi." The trust and love for Yuuichi is heartwarming. To quote Yuuichi on the matter, "Nayuki had continued to love me, even after I had refused her. But I think about what I would have done. What if our roles had been reversed? If Nayuki had rejected me while consumed by sorrow and despair, could I have continued to believe in Nayuki in spite of that? Could I have continued to love Nayuki all that time? Nayuki's strength, her wholehearted love. ... And I think that's the core of Nayuki. That is her. Jeepers. Just how much she adores Yuuichi. It makes me smile. It makes me so happy. Also, she likes watches. That's a pretty big plus. Oh yeah. And she's also very pretty. Now, during other routes, there's a lot of things we learn about her. For instance, We discover that she was continually writing to Yuuichi, despite him never responding to her over those 7 years. That made me really sad. It also brings a big old grin to my face. Like, jeepers, that just goes to reinforce my points before. She never stopped believing little Yuuichi. She adored him. Also, when a certain other girl rejects Yuuichi, she just says that she feels the need to be there for him. Just kind of hangs out with him. It's that sense. You know, she doesn't know the exact circumstances, just how upset Yuuichi is. And even while Yuuichi is fighting literal demons, quote, Yuuichi, are you telling me to go and lose? Nayuki, you got it. You should go and get soundly beaten, and then I will nurse you back to health. That's wonderful. That's beautiful. Now, I'm writing this at the very end of script writing, right? At the very end. You know, I've had some time to go back and think on all this. And while Eiko isn't harmed in any other routes like I thought she might be, I have had time to sit on all of this with my initial feelings, and I have to say, they're still intact, but they are more so. Nayuki is the best. I adore her. After her route, I played her second, by the way. She was the standard that I compared every other girl to, and they all fell short in some way. Nayuki also asserted her presence in every single route. She is there, and every single time I see her, every single thing new that I learn, it just reinforces the fact that Nayuki is best girl. Look, I even got a custom patch made. That is her. It's so I can say, Nayuki is my waifu. When it came time for Makoto's route, I was displeased, for I frickin' despised her. I'd played 2 routes before hers, and oh boy, Makoto pissed me off. Before the route, I even made a note, quote, I think she is going to be my least favorite. Also, fuck Makoto. Now, some other notes I made about her before playing her route. Pathetic, parentheses, dog. She even sounds like a sad hunting hound. More so than Cud. And also, I had this big note during the Nayuki rack that just said, fuck Makoto! Super all caps, you know. And it's just like the cat truck incident. Pissed me off. Now, this was beforehand. I can say that Makoto's story was the most impactful out of any plot Kanon has had. It was amazing. I adored her story. Makoto is a sweetheart. I like her a lot. Oh dear. However, before getting to that, let's talk a little bit about Makoto. Makoto is small and feral. It's the curse of the redhead. She's also a big fan of nukimen, or pork buns. In all fairness, pork buns are very good. Yeah, she is as petulant as a child. A petulant one. And if she thinks you're treating her as such, well, she becomes very unruly. However, treating Makoto like a child is the only way to really deal with her. Along with this, too, she's comparable to a cockroach. You can kick, stomp, and fumigate her, but she remains alive and thirsty for revenge. She never stops coming back. Although said revenge is very clumsy and vulnerable to sabotage. Along with this, concepts like responsibility or consequence are foreign to her. She doesn't give a fuck. Those are the 2 sounds Makoto make. A-W-W-W. A-ooh. That's the iconic noise of Makoto. Now, with all this being said, Makoto is a precious creature. When she warms up to Yuuichi, all her good points finally shine through. And that's when I started to warm up to her also. Jeepers. I will say it is adorable when Yuuichi forces Makoto in a friend-making situation, right? All she can do is mutter friends and then run away. She fails miserably at almost every task put before her in an extraordinarily endearing way. Based opinion she has, quote, you've got to put the fun things first. That is true. It doesn't matter where you are, work, college, whatever hell else. You gotta put the fun things first. That's how you get through it. You know what I mean? Jeepers. She wishes it could be spring forever, which is perhaps the most agreeable opinion out of all the other girls. They all like winter for some reason, which is evil. Winter is cold and awful, and I don't like it. But spring's fine. It's no fall, but better. I like the concept of winter, okay? But I don't like living in it. One day, while Yuuichi is out attempting to acquire ingredients for dinner, a mysterious girl launches a surprise attack against him. It's highly ineffective, and she passes out shortly after. So Yuuichi drags her corpse home, and after a while, she wakes up, and it is found that this girl has amnesia. All she remembers is that she hates Yuuichi for some reason. Well, she's gonna stay at the Mina's household for the time being, where Yuuichi is with his aunt and cousin, Nayuki. Soon, though, this girl remembers her name, Makoto. Nearly every night, Makoto attempts to pull some sort of violent prank on Yuuichi when she believes him to be asleep. However, Yuuichi is a light sleeper, and she's horrific at sneaking. So, she fails miserably each time as Yuuichi absolutely dominates Makoto in every prank attempt by causing it to backfire on her horrifically. Now, she says something that's noticeable. To quote, "In the end, animals just get thrown away when they're no longer wanted. Don't you agree, Yuuichi?" Well, and so the continuous fights between Yuuichi and Makoto continue until something happens. Makoto discards a cat that's taken a liking to her by dropping him onto a moving truck. If she was any slower or faster, the cat would have been thrown into the freeway and died. Now Yuuichi is a little pissed off about this, and this escalates into a large fight, where Makoto runs away in the end. Well, shit. Yuuichi's still a little pissed off, but he tails her just to make sure that she gets home safely. And while it looks to be that she will, Yuuichi decides just to keep watching her for a little while longer. And eventually, Makoto runs up this hill and sits. Somehow, the cat that she had thrown away finds its way back to her, and she says, among many things, quote, "Two nuisances, with nowhere to go." Oh, jeepers. Well, with that, she lays down to go to sleep on that hill. I gotta say, that line really got me. And so, once they're asleep on that cold hill, Yuuichi scoops them up and takes them home. And jeepers, she would have died if Yuuichi hadn't done that. It just, From here, their relationship turns much more positive, Yuuichi and Makoto. She seems to really enjoy being around Yuuichi, and she becomes a little clingy. Oh, right, I have a note here. Snogging the cat. So Makoto begins waiting after school for Yuuichi every single day, and a certain girl within that school notices this. Her name is Amano. She's kind of serious in a stoic way, right? She and Yuuichi get briefly acquainted, and then Yuuichi kind of noticing, okay, she knows, she's taking an interest in Makoto. He asks if Amano and Makoto could be friends, which Amano very coldly denies and just leaves. Now this is strange despite her prior interest in Makoto that attracted Yuuichi's attention to her in the first place. Well anyway, Makoto and Yuuichi continue to have fun for quite a while, until Makoto starts to become a little sick. She can't quite hold her chopsticks, not even a fork, or brush her teeth, or do basic human things. So, Yuuichi, having nowhere to turn, goes to Amano, and Amano explains what's up. Makoto is a kitsune, right? A fox spirit. In this case, there's a certain hill in the town these kitsune are said to live. And, you see, in the distant past of 7-ish years ago, Yuuichi once helped a certain fox kit with a broken leg. And he became rather close to the critter. However, he had to leave to go back home after the summer, so he essentially just left it in the forest and ran away, because he believed that was best. Because, you can't bring the fox with you back to the big city. Now, the kitsune do have a power. They can become human once again to experience human warmth, human kindness. But there is a price. No prior memories that they can have. And essentially, they die after a set period of time. Oh. Well, Amano already had to go through this once, and she really can't bring herself to do it again. So Yuuichi goes, yeah, fair enough. And, well, continues on. Makoto begins rapidly diminishing. Her ability to read goes, and eventually, it devolves to the point where she really can't even speak. Well, as Yuuichi stated earlier, no moment can be experienced more than once. And so, every moment with Makoto is precious. And eventually, she does disappear. But she is with Yuuichi up until the very end. And in the end, Amano and Yuuichi have become friends and are slowly helping each other come to a new normal. And these were my thoughts immediately after finishing this route. To quote, "This one I cried at. The themes of watching someone you love die and just being with them up until the end. Also, having that person wanting nothing more than to be with you. Makoto had her annoying bits, but I really warmed up to her in the end, even when I made constant mental notes to not get to like her too much. Here is where I start to see key as key, so to say. I was tearing up while writing this one." And as a note, I didn't edit these to be grammatically correct, so that one kinda hurt to read out loud. Alright, why Makoto is not best girl. Now, let me just begin by saying this was a big moment for Key, the company that made this. This is their first story. And this particular storyline had a certain emotion that Key would become more and more adept at infusing into their stories going forward. I think this was a big moment. In any case, Makoto's story is phenomenal. Watching someone you love, adore, jeepers have known for a long time, slowly atrophy. It's really rough to watch. And that theming was done very well in her story, which is interesting because there's a similar story, and I don't think it does it nearly as well as Makoto's. Though, I suppose in all fairness, that one is different circumstances. In either case, Makoto's decay is really hard to watch, but man, it's done well. And I gotta say, the general struggle that this particular story represents, it's a lot. And I can personally confirm that it's very similar to the real thing. Now, with that said, Makoto is endearing. Maybe as a little sister archetype, right? But here's the thing, she's not best girl. And while I suppose this really shouldn't apply with things like waifus or like best girl of an freaking anime or visual novel or manga or whatever, listen, if I had to choose one to live with, it'd be a hard Nayuki. I would not want to live with Makoto even after she was in her nice stage. But Makoto is a very good girl, and that really counts for something. Shiori. We come to Shiori. And let me say, I did not think that Shiori would be a very interesting route to me. But once again, Kanon has tricked me. It's pretty good. And an interesting thing to note, Shiori is the only non-childhood friend to Yuuichi. All the rest knew him when he was but a wee lad. Shiori is quite sick, though she still goes to school to wait for Yuuichi. She claims it's a cold in any case, but she seems to function like normal. I don't know. Well, Shiori has a very dry sense of humor and quite likes winter. To quote her opinion on that, "You can always put on more clothes, but there's a limit to how many you can take off." And you know what? This is the most sensible take on seasons out of all of the girls. And this is why fall is the best season, because it's not too hot, but it's also not cold enough for you to be feeling awful. You can wear cool jackets and generally be pretty neat. By the way, in this section, Sam, get the green screen, and I really want you to have your pat jacket on and just do like a few cool moves. Her dream is to make a huge snowman. Like a big old one, like a huge 12-footer, like a huge 32-footer, like a big snowman. And she wants to have snowball fights, do things in the snow. Although Yuuichi said no rocks, and of course Shiori was not very pleased about that. Not to imply she's violent in any way. Ah yes, and Shiori is the first girl to have a signature catchphrase rather than a sound. Hers is, and I quote, "I don't like people who... ... followed generally by, just kidding. Although she doesn't always add that end part if she's not pleased. She loves ice cream, despite the cold, and with that, Particularly, she likes vanilla, which is an extraordinarily sensible choice. Speaking of sensible, she also does not like spice, which is sensible. You know, if I had to describe Shiori, it's generally sensible. In opinions, definitely not in action. She's a very strange person. An artist, although she's very poor. She has probably the skill level of a 3rd grader. And Shiori also gets an impressive score of 0 when playing whack-a-mole.
終わってしまいました。
俺、0点なんて初めて見た。
Time for Shiori's story. We begin our scene with Eiyu and Yuuichi very lost, and Eiyu trying some shenanigans. She ends up running into a tree, which causes snow to fall on a girl. This girl falls, and all of the stuff she was holding becomes spread out within the snow before her. Eiyu kind of apologizes and helps her grab her stuff. In any case, this girl is able to help them navigate back to known ground. Flash forward, next day at school. It is brought to Yuuichi's attention that there is this girl just standing out on the quad menacingly during school hours, and despite the snowfall. So, being the naturally curious cat that he is, Yuuichi decides to go out and see what's up. Lo and behold, it is none other but the girl from before. Well now, they have some friendly chatter, and it's found out that her name is Shiori. You see, Shiori claims that she's there to meet someone. Though she doesn't give a name, she also claims that she has a cold, and general bad health has kept her away from school. So Yuuichi scolds her for not doing her part to get better quickly and, listening to her doctor, staying out of the cold. And of course Shiori's like, oh yeah, no, it kind of stinks, sucks, yeah, I know, I'll do my best. Oh, well now, making excuses. Well, whatever, so long as she understands. Now this cycle repeats itself, but rather than it being brought to Yuuichi's attention, Yuuichi directs his attention to the quad to see if Shiori is there, and they go pretty close. Oh yeah, we also find out that Shiori is Kiori's sister. Remember how I mentioned her earlier? Maybe? Well, she's one of Nayuki's good friends. We'll talk a little bit more about her in a little bit. But what's important is Kiori does not want to acknowledge that Shiori even exists. Well, in any case, after a while of hanging out, Yuuichi and Shiori plan a longer play date. Well, Shiori insists that it's a date. Yuuichi denies this. This is where the whack-a-mole incident occurs. So they go to hang out, right? They go to an arcade. Apparently Shiori really hasn't been to any. And they see a machine. She goes, oh, what's that? Well, our man of the hour, Yuuichi goes, oh yeah, that's whack-a-mole. Anyone can do that. And Shiori manages to score a fine 0. Man, she sure whacked those moles, didn't she? But man, I gotta say, in this particular route, I feel really bad for Eiyu. The pure sadness of her not being able to see a movie with Yuuichi, despite her being so excited. Oh, I guess I should briefly introduce Eiyu too. Eiyu is this girl who used to know Yuuichi. She's excitable, small, and quick. Yeah, quick. She also has light fingers. In any case, their playdate ends in an empty park, having a snowball fight. Shiori versus Yuuichi. A fine date, way better than anything I've ever been on. It's somewhere around here in the plot that Shiori says, and I quote, "When you're halfway through a story, you want to be able to look forward to a happy ending, right?" What foreshadowing that is. Foreshadowing enough for Yuuichi to ask Shiori out, and to be promptly rejected. Jeepers, guys, I was not expecting this. Our protagonist isn't supposed to be rejected, especially when he makes the right choices. To say the least, Yuuichi's pretty upset, and he spirals for a few days. Aw, and Nayuki attempts to make him feel better, a best girl moment. To quote, "But I just felt I ought to be there for you." Aw, jeepers. Later in this, Nayuki stays up all night waiting for Yuuichi to get home because she's worried about him. Best girl. Best girl. Oh, okay. Back to Shiori. You see, she rejected Yuuichi due to the fact that she will die. And I don't mean that as in we're all gonna die one day. She's gonna die very soon, in fact. Like, within the next 3-ish weeks, give or take. She hasn't the common cold, but something far, far worse. And Shiori's accepted her death, perhaps in the most sad way possible. To quote Dear Shiori on this, "If only a miracle would happen, it might turn out alright. But they're called miracles because they don't happen." Dang, well, she also does like Yuuichi, and so long as he's fine with dating her for just a little bit. Shiori wants a normal life before the end, which is, by the point of her telling Yuuichi this, basically a week or so away. What makes this even worse is the fact that essentially her death date is pretty much on her birthday. Wow. Well, Shiori wants to go to school and hang out with Yuuichi after, and so the week occurs. It's sad in its own way to watch this week happen, especially beneath all the fun that they have, you know? Because it's little hints, it's little suggestions, it's coming, the end. Well, I've been circling around a lot, so it's time to circle back around to Kiori. Now, she's a strange person, although Yuuichi says she's cool. Standoffish, kind of in her own world. She likes school and is generally very moody. We see that throughout the other routes. She is present as Nayuki's friend throughout all of the runs also. You know what? And yeah, she is pretty cool, pretty based thinking on it. But I don't want to talk about how based Kiori is. I want to talk about her and Shiori. Sometime during this entire mess, before this final week, she calls Yuuichi to the school, pretty late at night. And she is rather free with her thoughts and emotions. You see, Kiori has been avoiding Shiori. She just can't stand seeing her get weaker and weaker and weaker. And she admits she's doing this to the point that she's not even acknowledging that she has a sister, because she knows how everything's gonna end up and just how soon that's gonna happen. To quote Kiori, "Why was she ever born?" Oh, it's clear throughout all this that Kiori really does adore Shiori as her little sister, but man, that sickness is just really way too much for her. Poor girl. Well, back to it once again. Shiori and Yuuichi have a very nice week, and all the while Yuuichi is racking his rat-like mind, attempting to think of a good birthday gift for Shiori. And so he asks Yu for advice. And keep in mind, all throughout the run, Shiori and Yuuichi have been bumping into Yu. And once again, here I have to say, poor Yu. Oh, she helps him come up with a fine gift, which is a very nice sketchbook and art supplies. Though it does cost Yuuichi a pretty penny. And, Yu, she just has to watch Yuuichi, who she obviously very much likes. You know, likes. Has to help him out, as it's pretty clear he likes someone else. Poor girl, poor girl. Oh. Well, Yuuichi and Shiori spend their last day having fun together. And in the end, they end up in the park. The very quiet park where they've been hanging out a lot over this past few weeks. And right near the very end of their last day, we do learn some things. You see, Shiori was going to take a box cutter to her wrists on that day that she met Yuuichi and Yu. After all, what was there to live for? Or at least, that's what she thought, until she saw Yu and Yuuichi arguing. She said it looked like they were having so much fun that it really reminded her that there was a lot to love in life. It almost stopped her. She did, take the box cutter to the wrists. But somehow she was mysteriously healed. They just closed right back up, apparently. It's around here that Yuuichi says something. "They're called miracles because they do happen, even when things seem hopeless." With that, Yuuichi falls asleep. And when he wakes, Shiori is gone. Yuuichi hasn't cried this entire time, just like Shiori. But finally he breaks down. But one miracle already happened, so why not another? Sometime later, Yuuichi is out and about. It's lunchtime at school and he doesn't know what to do. He buys himself some ice cream. Or rather, he was going to. They're sold out. So instead, he gets his usual lunch and heads out to the quad. Snow's starting to melt. There's a few people milling about. No longer as it was during the winter. But after some time, she appears. The big old bag of ice cream. My thoughts just after finishing the route. I did not think that I would like this one very much at first, but halfway through, it really got me. The miracles line, and Shiori wanting a normal last week, were heartbreaking. I teared up pretty good at the ending, but I was also grinning like an idiot. It really made me happy. Also, I have a theory due to the epilogue. They are in a Little Busters-esque universe, someone else's dream, where wishes can come true. Which, I'll maybe get to that later. We'll talk about that. I have some different theories now. Now, why Shiori is not best girl. Now here's the thing, she's cute. There's no denying that, I won't deny it, she's cute. Listen, if a girl like Shiori were to, tiptoe up to me and say, Sam, you're pretty hip and with it. You want to go on a little date with me? You want to throw some snowballs filled with rocks at each other? I would go, well, looky Miss Cookie, and straighten my collar. But yeah, no, she's very endearing. Soft-spoken, very dry sense of humor. Cute. Pretty good. And once again, I did not have high hopes for her route at all. However, once again, Key has proven my expectations wrong. The way she is also free with almost all of her emotions just on her face, save sadness, is also pretty endearing. Watching Shiori and Yuuichi interact is just fantastic. She smiled up till the end and cried when everything was over and okay. However, there is something very wrong with her, something I cannot overlook. Now Yuuichi, when hanging out with her earlier, attempted to go for the little bit of ice cream that gets stuck on the lid of the ice cream jar. The ice cream pot? The ice cream cup? I guess it'd be ice cream cup. Anyway, he was going for that, right? And she said, oh, that's something poor people do. And this was perhaps one of, if not the most egregious comments I've ever seen a character in a Key novel make. This was horrific. This was atrocious. This was a tragedy. Yuuichi was in the right going for that. He was getting his money's worth by eating all of the ice cream available to him. How dare Shiori say that? What a truly wasteful and evil mindset. In other routes, Shiori's a frickin' ghost. You see her like twice, and then it is as if she never was. Maybe she dies in other routes. That's a really upsetting thought. I do wonder what happens to the other girls when it's not their route. So here are some quotes I really liked from this route, but I really couldn't fit in nicely. Let's begin with Shiori's. Of course, there'll be lots of sunny days after today, but there'll never be another one that's the same. That's true, you gotta enjoy life as it comes in the moment. And there's another one from Eiko. If Yuuichi-san tries anything funny, you just have to scream, alright? It is time for the general overview of Mai. Mai is quiet. Too quiet. To the untrained eye, she is shy, curt, and rather blunt in both action and word. However, to those who get to know her, they can see past her outer veil and who she really is. For instance, speaking of blunt, she generally thwacks someone when embarrassed, or just runs away from the situation. Also, she really likes to eat, especially Japanese food. And there is a kind side to her also. Why, after she, beat the hell out of a dog, she fed it because she realized it was hungry. And she cares deeply for her friends, and has a good deal of empathy towards them. Speaking of beating the hell out of animals, she really likes animals, like really likes them. Why, she just really wants to go to the zoo, that's it. And she has an iconic catchphrase rather than a noise she makes. It is, I don't mind. She doesn't mind Japanese food, she doesn't mind Yuuichi, she doesn't mind a lot of things, but that just means she likes them. Now you have to understand though, Mai is like us, but more so. To quote one of her friends, Sayuri, but that's how sincerely she feels things. She's much deeper than ordinary people. To be blunt, much like Mai, this was another route I honestly thought would be eh. And I was and was not right. But I'll get into that later. Yuuichi has borrowed Nayuki's notes He is a transfer student after all. However, Nayuki wants to study, and Yuuichi doesn't study. He's forgotten them at school. However, being the morally righteous person that he is in this particular route, he sets off in retrieval of them. And the school is surprisingly easy to access at night. Shortly after gaining access to his desk, and by extension, the notes, he sees a lone girl with long black hair and a sword. Not a katana like you might expect, but a frickin' long sword. Being curious, as one certainly would be, he walks over and attempts conversation. She just ignores him though, so Yuuichi, having enough of this nonsense, decides to just leave. However, he feels a short but strong gust of wind, and the girl has moved. Teleported almost. But whatever it was got away. And thus we meet Mai, and we are introduced to her vigil against the demons that haunt this school. Apparently she comes here every night to defend the place. Well, our little Yuuichi is intrigued by this. What's going on here? What's up with this chick? So, the next day, Yuuichi happens to run into Mai, and she's as unresponsive as ever towards him. Right behind her, we have the other one, the one that cannot make Mai, the one Mai cannot be without, the Mai that is not Mai, Sayuri. She is Mai's best friend and perhaps best girl. Well, second best. She is genuine in an extraordinarily endearing way. She always has this big ol' grin, big ol' smile, like, look at that, that's wonderful. She also always refers to herself in the third person. She cares deeply for her friends, she's a great cook, and she feeds into Mai's food obsession. Too bad she doesn't have a full route. Well, anyway, Yuuichi quickly finds himself having a picnic with Mai and Sayuri at the top of the stairs, like at the very tippy top. And with that, he finds himself in a loop. He brings Mai food at night, and kinda helps her fight demons, worrying poor Nayuki in the process. In the morning, he gets up, slightly tired, and walks to school with Mai and Sayuri. And then, he eats Sayuri's lunch with Mai and Sayuri. He repeats this endlessly, and it's wonderful. It's beautiful, and I gotta say, these three have fantastic chemistry. Mai ignores Yuuichi, kind of responds to Sayuri, and Sayuri is gullible enough to believe almost anything Yuuichi says, and boy oh boy, if we know anything about Yuuichi, he says some things. In good news though, at night, Yuuichi seems to be a bit of a lucky charm, as the demons are finally starting to become injured, and some have even died. Ooh! And somewhere in the middle of this, the class ball of 99 is going to occur. Now, at this point, Yuuichi has become intrigued enough with Mai to begin the, quote, the Kazuma Mai popularization campaign. And he is attempting to find ways to make Mai more palatable to the general population. Unfortunately, Mai is known as a generally strange person / troublemaker, breaking the windows and lights at night, getting in trouble, just not talking, being kind of rude in the process. And Yuuichi wants to change that because he's realized that Mai is like us, but more so. Well, in any case, with the help of the ever-helpful Sayuri, dresses and a suit are acquired for the trio, and Mai is thrust into the event. Now, this ball is formal. Like, this is a pretend event of high society. Nothing like my school's really awful dances. Well, I guess they were a lot of fun still. In this context, though, in this ball setting, right, Sayuri and Mai are fantastic. They attract male attention for various reasons. They're both very pretty. Mai ignores the line of men, just looking down and away and occasionally asking Yuuichi to dance. Sayuri claims that she's tired and she must sit down, while occasionally asking Yuuichi to dance. Yuuichi is the Sigma. Jeepers, it's at this point that Mai really began clicking with me. There was this point where she said something like, Yuuichi, don't leave me, at the very beginning, as she was just extraordinarily nervous, but just, still deadpan at the situation. Jeepers. And it's a little unfortunate because Yuuichi said something to the effect of nothing could possibly go wrong just before putting this ball scheme into motion. And Yuuichi, that's the classic blunder. It's Murphy's Law. You fucked up, Yuuichi. Never claim that nothing could go possibly wrong, or Murphy's Law will enact itself upon you and everything around you. Yuuichi, listen. Murphy's Law always happens, it always occurs, but foreshadowing it always makes it 10 times worse. A demon attacks the ball, and of course, Mai somehow has access to her sword. We don't know where she had it. We don't know how she got it so quickly. But the long and short of it is, everything is destroyed in the conflict, and Sayuri managed to get herself hurt. Poor thing. Oh, well, some shenanigans with the student council ensues, and Mai gets expelled. Sayuri stands up to them, and thus the council's trap is sprung. You see, Sayuri joins them, and Mai comes back. Sayuri's pep. It's part of the diet, right? And very rich. Oh yeah, and the diet's kind of like the Japanese House of Representatives. So in either case, flashback. Sayuri was on the student council, became friends with Mai. Mai got in trouble. She didn't like that, stood up for Mai, and then basically said, you know what? I don't like any of you. And then left the student council. Now this shamed the student council. That's not supposed to happen, so all this was done to get her back into their grubby paws. I have a note here. And I forget exactly how this one came into existence immediately after all of that, but I'll read it verbatim. Monkey is mentioned, Mai's attention. Bullet point, like Chris O'Neill. Well, Sayuri will have less time with her friends, and Yuuichi is not pleased about it. However, life goes on. Okay, it's at this point that something incredible, something amazing, something that really shows Yuuichi in his primal fighter form. It occurs. Usually, Yuuichi, in the morning, comes up from behind and slaps the girls on the back. On this particular morning, though, before walking behind them on their way to school, Mai has been looking back in anticipation for Yuuichi's appearance. Adorable. And she gets very embarrassed when this is mentioned and just walks away. It's at this point I made another note. The demons are almost secondary. Haha, but once again, foreshadowing and Murphy's Law. Oh yeah, a real quick note here. Flights of fancy. Well now, once again, after some time, another incident occurs. A demon gets Sayuri again due to some shenanigans involving an anteater and going to the school at night. A cervical spine injury. This time, Mai freaks the frick out. Mai goes insano style. The next day at school, she has her sword and she's destroying things. However, Yuuichi manages to calm her down. Thank goodness. However, Mai is determined. Mai has gone insano style. Mai is a primal fighter, and it's time for that final hunt to destroy the demons once and for all. No more demons. Get them out of here. And Yuuichi is here to help her with a sword of his own. It's made of wood, so instead she gives him a katana. Things progress, with each one of them getting hurt. It ends with only one demon left, and Mai tricking Yuuichi into leaving. However, Yuuichi realizes this deception and comes back. And with that, he runs into the final demon on his own. However, this demon looks like a young Mai. Now, it's at this point in the story that backstory is just dumped upon us. Sort of like how that snow is just dumped upon poor Sayuri when a Yu evilly runs into the tree. She knew what she was doing. Okay, time to speedrun this backstory. You see, Mai had a very sick mother. However, Mai also had some sort of secret, gypsy power that allowed her to, do healing and see spirits and shit. It's not really properly explained, but it allowed her mother to be healed. During all this, Mai's evil aunt got her on TV and basically ruined her reputation, and witch hunts started against her and her mother, so they had to move around a lot. However, due to it being on the telly, the reputation still followed them. Mai eventually ends up in a town where she meets this boy in a field, and they play together, and they have so much fun, and they keep doing it. I'm going into my Joker voice here. She even told him about her powers, and he wasn't even shocked or particularly perturbed about it. He was just like, yeah, that's neat, let's play tag. Well, He was there for a little while. However, he would have to be back next year because he had to go home. But just before he left, Mai called him on the phone. Demons were attacking their place, and she needed help defending it. Of course, these things were just made up to keep the boy here, and the boy knew this. He said, yeah, sorry, you're gonna have to wait till next year. I'll come and play then. And then he hung up. Mai did not see him again for a very, very long time. However, she still stayed to defend their place. And thus where a golden field once stood, a horrific school was built. Well, the little demon tells Yuuichi this and unlocks his memories. And with that, Yuuichi confronts Mai. Mai wants to kill this little demon, but Yuuichi knows the truth, and Mai confesses to him. And then she frickin' kills herself. Holy fuck. In the moment, and even thinking about it now, that genuinely shocked me. I was not sure what I was reading. From here, some stuff happens, and, through power, magic, gypsy curse, whatever it is, Mai is healed. Well, anyway, Mai died, and was reborn in spirit, metaphysical kind of thing here. Kind of combining herself with her lost childhood. The demons were created by her power, and thus were slain with the Yuuichi's help, and she became perhaps a more happier person in the end of this. And then for the prologue, there's a nice graduation scene with her, Sayuri, and Yuuichi. So, now we get to my thoughts just after finishing. Teared up a little. I cannot say if Mai's entire backstory was rushed or not. However, I went into the route not having high expectations. Now, she may be my favorite. Not best girl, that objectively belongs to Nayuki, but perhaps one of my favorites. The suicide bit left me in utter shock, though. I must look that up. What happened? No Eiko. She did not meet her. Strange. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this route. As I'm sure you could hear by the end of it, I was going Insano style. There is so much backstory dumped on us right at the end. It's not great writing. I mean, shoot, in the moment, I really enjoyed the route. However, I can acknowledge still that wasn't very good writing. Ugh, man. Shoot, I went like in full Insano style there. Let's talk about why Mai isn't best girl, though. So, Mai is a great character. She is adorable in her own special way. Just the little moments where she's shy or shows a bit of affection for Yuuichi, they're so impactful compared to the other girls because you don't see them very much. All the while, you still know just how much she cares for her friends. It's very, very endearing. All the little things, watching her open up, Once again, though, if I had to choose Nayuki or Mai to spend the rest of my life with, well, it's the difference between a pretty ogre or a perfect Nayuki. Nayuki would be far more pleasant. Mai, listen, I adore you, but unlucky. And in other routes, I have this note here too. She goes quietly. Mai, right? Surprisingly so. You don't see her at all in any other route unless you go to the school to retrieve Nayuki's book. And it's not even mandatory to go do that. So she's just if Shiori's a frickin' ghost, then Mai is a frickin' ghost. It's finally time to get to Ayu. The big Popinski, the big Kahuna, the grand poobah, the main girl. Boy oh boy, Ayu is a creature. A creature that's small in size but immense in a metaphysical sense. Kind of like a raccoon. The very first note I took about Ayu was, quote, pathetic, parentheses, affectionate. And I think that's a fine way to describe her. She has almost like a childlike enthusiasm to almost everything she does, but also a certain seriousness only a child can attain at times. Well, at least she has a lot of enthusiasm when greeting Yuuichi. She's slightly oblivious, she likes and she has light fingers. She no like heights. And her signature noise, her signature sound is... Well, there we go. I don't have a lot to say about Ayu, and I don't have a lot to say regarding her story either. But let's hit the highlights. We begin with Yuuichi waiting outside a store for blessed Nayuki to get some shopping done. And thus, at the speed of a quick Ayu appears. Yuuichi looks at her like a cow looks at an oncoming train, and a magnificent crash occurs. However, Ayu recovers quickly and grabs Yuuichi's hands, and they book it because someone is after her. After escaping, it is found that the villain chasing Ayu seems to just be a confused old man. Ayu insists upon his wickedness and also confesses to her for getting her wallet and running off with a bag of taiyaki. The man chasing her was just the taiyaki vendor, and Ayu hadn't paid. Ayu committed an eat and run. Now, listen, Ayu insists that she was going to go back to pay him, run firmly on Yuuichi's side. Being the morally righteous fellow that he is, he condemns Ayu's unlawful actions, but he does accept taiyaki when offered it. I mean, hey, there's nothing to be done now, right? In any case, now the pair have introduced each other, and are slightly getting to know each other. However, Ayu is a little shocked by Yuuichi's name, but yeah, she brushes it off pretty quickly and leaves with his signature, "Bye-bye." Well, on his way home from school the next day, Yuuichi takes a little detour through the shopping district. And who literally runs into him again? None but Ayu. Ayu's contemptuous crime spree continues, and they must once again flee, or someone is after her again. It's the taiyaki salesman. They run quite out of the way, and eat stolen taiyaki once more. However, this time Ayu confirms it. She knew Yuuichi 7 years ago. They were friends. And with this news, she attempts to attack him. Yuuichi gracefully dodges out of the way, and Ayu hits a tree. She claims that he ruined an emotional reunion scene, and Yuuichi rightfully claims that he was defending himself against an unlawful attack from the female menace. Shenanigans ensues. In either case, Ayu is overjoyed at finding Yuuichi once again. And it's pretty adorable watching her interact with Yuuichi. He bullies her, and there's nothing she can do about it. Well, Ayu says that she's been hunting around the shopping district looking for something very, very important that she's lost. And when Yuuichi inquires as to what this something is, because, he'll help out, well, Ayu can't remember, but it is very important to her. So Ayu goes, alright, yeah, fine, okay, I'll help you. So they hang out and search. And so this cycle continues for some time, with various hangout events occurring in between the searching for Ayu's precious thing. And eventually she joins the household, living with Yuuichi, his aunt, and Nayuki. Now, Ayu becomes particularly attached to Yuichi's aunt, Eiko, whom we haven't talked a lot about. Once again, later. We'll get to her later. Well, time progresses. We're no closer to finding Ayu's precious thing, but today, Ayu wants to take Yuuichi to a very special place. A massive tree, and I mean massive. And something about it seems awfully nostalgic to Yuuichi for some reason. Well, sometime after this, Eiko gets very sick, and while everyone's worried, Nayuki and Yuuichi have school. Ayu, well, she goes to a different school, or so she claims. But she's the most worried of all. So she stays home to help Eiko as she can, and she does end up succeeding. Well, I suppose with that, we need to get into a different part of the story. You see, there are flashbacks on Yuuichi's part all throughout this story. As I said, Yuuichi and Ayu hung out when they were little, right? 7 years ago. And through these flashbacks, we learn a number of things. You see, when they first met, Ayu was very, very, very sad. Until Yuuichi was nice to her and bought her taiyaki and played with her and hung out with her. They basically became playmates and just hung out daily after that. They went to the big old tree, Yuuichi constantly worried as Ayu climbed up it. And she goes, no, I'm fine, I'm good at climbing trees. And in all fairness, she is. Throughout all this, Ayu's, she brings it up occasionally. She's happier now, but Ayu was very upset due to her dear old mummy dying very, very recently. You see, later, she also, opens up to Yuuichi and says just how helpless she felt watching her mom die, and how awful it was that there was nothing she could do. Flashing back to the present, it's not explicitly stated, but it's clear enough how Ayu viewed Eiko. Bless her heart. Well, with Eiko's recovery, something else is now happening. Ayu is losing time. She has to find that precious thing, and with that, she disappears. Now, Yuuichi has gone into full overdrive. He needs to find this precious thing to get Ayu back, and he thinks he knows where it's buried. And with the help of some of his friends, he finds what he is seeking. A dilapidated angel doll in a little time capsule buried underneath some trees. Time to flashback once again. This is a gift from Yuuichi to Ayu to help cheer her up. Yuuichi also said it can grant 3 wishes, and these wishes have to be in his power to grant. So the first 2 wishes are wished, but there remains a third, and you gotta keep this in mind for later, because it isn't used those 7 years ago. Well, we also find out shortly after that all that time ago, little old Ayu fell from that immense tree, and she died. Except that she kinda didn't. I think she went into a coma. Once again, it's a little unclear. And so, Yuuichi was reuniting with her ghost afterimage, Ayu's lingering presence. I don't know exactly what it is. Whatever apparition appeared before Yuuichi, it clearly was unnatural. But, going off into the woods near the old tree, he brings a now fixed angel doll. Nayuki fixed it, bless her. And Ayu meets with Yuuichi one last time, and he asks her what her final wish is. Ayu says, and I quote, "Please forget about me. Please just think of me as if I were never here." But Yuuichi embraces her. Jeepers, she really is a little troublemaker. She just wanted to be together for a little longer. That's really all. Is it that selfish? With that, Ayu disappears. However, in the epilogue, we find that someone has gotten out of the hospital, and they're meeting up with Yuuichi. Now, really quick, there is the matter of that pesky third wish, because it's pretty important to this telling. The problem is the third wish is very ambiguous. We don't know directly what it is. In any case, I believe that the visual novel seems to lean towards the third wish being Ayu sacrificing herself to make the current heroine's wish come true. That is, to be with Yuuichi. Now this makes a lot of sense because we see Ayu in every route give a final goodbye to Yuuichi, and it's always just about halfway through the story that she does this. One particular thing I want to note about this is Shiori's epilogue. And, oh boy, there's a little bit here. So Shiori is going to be in my quote voice, like this. And Yuuichi will be in my voice for this. To quote all this, "Have you ever wondered if, maybe, we are living in someone else's dream? Like, somebody's dreaming about me, about us, and they can have one wish granted anything. Only inside the dream, obviously." What wish? Where's that coming from? Well, of course she couldn't just have a wish granted for no reason. Like, when she started living in the dream world, she couldn't do anything but cry. But if she kept waiting in the dream, forever and ever, then maybe she'd have a chance. Maybe it would be given to her. Kind of like a present, after she'd been waiting so long. So, she can have any wish she wants granted. Absolutely anything. Like, say, maybe she could help someone who was seriously ill with her one single wish. What do you think, Yuuichi-san? There's a break after this. Then Yuuichi comes back with, "Come to think of it, I haven't seen that girl lately. My world is devoid of duffel coats and gloves, empty of people rushing around and bumping into things." And I believe this all but confirms what Ayu's third wish was. Notice how Shiori always said her after a certain point. In Ayu's dream. A dream that she'll have to wait in forever. In death. In Ayu's route, it's to wake up out of the coma and be with Yuuichi. And the other girl's routes, it's
僕そろそろ行くね。バイバイ、ゆういちくん。
And a wish, a very sincere one, for Yuuichi to find happiness with the girl that he loves. Well, here are my thoughts just after finishing, word for word. I was not sure if they would leave her dead, and I almost believed that they would have. I am a little annoyed with that. But I suppose I'm really not. You getting the Fuku treatment. Well, in the end, I am pretty happy with it. I did have a big old grin on my face at the end, and slightly teared up. So, once again, I think now understanding the third wish, my initial thoughts thereafter, I don't really feel that anymore. It's definitely way more impactful now, having thought on it a little longer. Now it is time for why a Yu is not best girl. Well, she is the one that discovers Yuuichi is her Yuuichi, and her first impulsive reaction upon confirming this fact is a hug. Adorable. When a Yu acquires movie tickets from Eiko, she is so very excited for Yuuichi to wake up, eat breakfast, so she can ask him out to it. Just so giddy, it's adorable. She very much has her own way of going about it, but the way she pursues Yuuichi really shows just how much she likes him. And one thing I find really interesting, normally the main girl of most key visual novels is overshadowed greatly by the other girls. Whether it's Rin from Little Busters or Nagisa from Clan Ed, they don't have very strong personalities in my mind. Nagisa, I like Nagisa, but Rin pisses me off. But a Yu, I'm really surprised. She really sticks out as the main girl. She's genuinely really good as such. She's a surprisingly strong competitor for Best Girl. However, once again, she's beaten out by 3 other girls. The first being Nayuki, then Sayuri, and from there I'd say she's tied with Mai, which is really high praise. The competition for Best Girl in Kanon is surprisingly fierce. They're all pretty fantastic, but Yu ranks very high considering she's a main character. So, jeepers, just know that. In other routes, too, I want to talk about some stuff. She doesn't know what modern tech is, like cell phones, which is a really nice touch considering her actual state of comatose or dead or whatever. And like I said, too, oh man, her goodbye to Yuuichi when it's not her route, it gets me every time. It makes me sad. Especially so, like I kept mentioning in Shiori's. Oh, she has to be there and watch her beloved Yuuichi get close to someone else. Well, I guess Nayuki has to do this in every route, so Yu doesn't have it that bad. It's time to talk about Eiko. Now, Eiko is Nayuki's mom and Yuuichi's aunt on his mother's side. So, beginning of the story, Yuuichi's parents have to go out of the country or some shenanigans, I don't know. But in either case, Eiko is the very first person to volunteer to take Yuuichi in. And to say the least, Eiko is a beast, a physical nasty beast, despite being soft-spoken. The word calm or calmly, as an adjective being used to describe her actions. She's kind, she's understanding, all that. She is a physical, nasty beast. There is no household task or household adjacent task that Eiko cannot complete in a frighteningly short amount of time. Efficiency, accuracy, and simple insanity. Laundry, cleaning, cooking, coffee. It's simply incredible. There's only one thing.
これ何のジャムですか？
秘密です。特製ですから私にしか作れないジャムなんですよ。
Absolute virtual insanity. There was a reason why Eiko was voted best mom in that one key anniversary character poll. Now, she meets every single main girl except for Mai, so I don't quite know her comments about her, but she does have some things to say about the others. Now, these are interesting comments, as Eiko seems to recognize these girls for who or what they are. For a Yu, she says it a few times, what a spirited girl. And also, not to forget, oh, that couldn't be that one, in reference to like, oh yeah, she knew Yuuichi and Yu used to hang out. She also knows what happened to AU. And Makoto, too. She just accepts Makoto into the house. No hesitation. Like, yeah, she has amnesia. Sure, she can stay here. And then she goes absolutely insano style trying to find her family. Bless her heart. Poor Eiko. But once Makoto is explained to her, Eiko just is like, oh yeah, no, I remember that fox, so that's her. Huh. She just, yeah, immediately accepts it. Even Nayuki's a little weirded out by all that. But she's like, well, shoot, if both Yuuichi and Eiko believe it, well, I guess I'll try too. Yeah, Eiko generally, though, is pretty chill. Just accepting people in the house to let them eat or stay. Ain't that just the way? Oh yeah. Here's the thing, too. Shiori actually catches Eiko off guard, though, right? When first meeting her, Eiko is at a loss for what to say, and her features become imperceptibly perturbed. Now, Shiori didn't notice, but Yuuichi, having lived with Eiko, this is like a massive, this is like a complete face change of utter shock and confusion by comparison to, the normal just mask Eiko is able to conjure. It's clear here that Eiko has some sort of supernatural sense. How it works, it's really enigmatic, who can really say, but in any case, fantastic character, best key mother I've seen thus far. I like Eiko a lot. Very cool. It's time for some factoids. This is a catch-all section for anything I want to talk about, but doesn't have a place in the video. Begin with some thank yous. So I followed a walkthrough because I prefer reading rather than making choices in my visual novel. Although, and maybe that's not entirely true, but I prefer the happiest ending. So, a special thanks to Eskimo Bill 4575 for the guide I used. It was straightforward, pretty cool. Appreciate that immensely. Along with that too, occasionally I had the odd question or I was just looking for information, and when I couldn't find that quickly, I went to the Kanon Fans Unite Discord. Very helpful people, they seem pretty cool. They're obsessed with Kanon, as you would expect. But the current owner of this server, he's archived a ton of Kanon information, which is very helpful. If any of you happen to want to see a more in-depth look at like the marketing around Kanon and like the materials and how the reception was, the things surrounding Kanon that isn't Kanon, maybe I'll make another video, who can say. But in any case, fantastic resource. So, I really made this video around a good time. I had no idea that Kanon would be turning 25 this year of 2024. Kind of insane. I missed the exact birthday by a fair bit, but pretty cool. As I mentioned in the beginning, it's now on Steam, so you don't have to go through some obscure Google Drive to get it. So I would highly recommend going and giving it a play sometime soon. It's a fantastic visual novel. I'm not biased at all when I say it's very good and you should go read it. So, this was Key's first visual novel, and if you don't know who Key is, they formed in, I believe, 1998, and, well, they're a visual novel company. They were veterans of the industry already, the founders, and this was their first novel. Now, Key is pretty famous. They're well known for making pretty dang good visual novels. They have a fantastic lineup. I've read quite a few of them already. And I hope to talk about more of them in the future. The next video I think I'll work on in this line of videos is Air. And I'll do that regardless of probably reception on this video, though I hope it does well. Along with that too, if this video does do really well, maybe I'll make a video doing it in chronological order, me talking about every single Key novel. That'd be pretty cool. I like them a lot, as I said. Yeah. And, oh boy, I guess here I can talk about the anime a little bit. So I originally had this big section planned for it. In fact, I actually have the entire anime. This is the newer one from 2006, so it doesn't have the frightening art style of the older one. But my original intention was I was going to watch all of it and compare it to the visual novel. But this project's gone on long enough. And besides that, I'm awful when it comes to watching things because I feel bad sitting down and I feel like I could be doing something else like reading visual novel or like on my Kobo, or painting a model. You know, I just don't like to sit down to watch things unless I'm with someone else, because I kind of feel like it's wasting time. I know that's how most people relax, but I just can't do it. But I'll talk about briefly, really quick. The anime, the 2006 one, will make you like the franchise even more. It's pretty cool. It is a mix of different route choices compared to the visual novel, you know, where you just go through one, because obviously the anime has a tough job of having to go through every single girl's route while not going through the routes, because Yuuichi has to end up with whoever main girl is. In this case, it's a Yu, as we all know, which I still find to be very, very interesting. Yu's such a colorful character compared to most main girls in, you know, visual novels, or even anime for that matter. In it, Mai plays a much bigger part too. She uses her weird special powers to kind of guide Yuuichi in different directions. That's just something I've noticed so far. I think that's a very interesting touch. Also, Kitagawa, he's a minor character. Kinda not very present in the visual novel, but in the anime he's very present. He is the beta to Yuuichi's Sigma. He is a sniveling little man who's on Yuuichi's wavelength, so he's pretty funny, he's cool, but man, he doesn't have it with the ladies. He's a simp.
北川くん、ちょっとこれ持って。
あ、はい。
But Kitagawa in the anime, he is glorious. He has much more character than he does in the VN. And also in the VN, his voice mixing in the version I played was so weird. He was so quiet compared to the other characters. In the anime, this is fixed. Oh yeah, and a special note, Yu is not as vilified in the anime. She didn't just steal it because she didn't have money. She was spooked away and she didn't have money. Oh, well. Kind of making Yu into a nicer character. I liked her better when she was a thieving rat. That's just my humble opinion about the anime. I'm sure I could talk at length about it, but I don't want to make this longer than it has to be. So if you want an addendum all about the Kanon anime, the 2006 version, please don't make me do the old one. I will gladly do so. Ooh. So, bloody hell. Before I go back to rambling about Kanon, just some quick things I should probably plug. I have a Discord, so if you want to hop in there and talk to me, I pop in, check to see what people are talking about every so often. It's a little dead, like most things in my life. Don't worry about that. But if you want to hop in, I will read everything in there. I'll hop in voice chat once a week, talk to people. It's pretty cool. Along with that too, so I'm a poor college boy, and I like spending money on my videos. Ergo, the new green screen and some better lighting. Was this a wise decision? Maybe not, but you can feed my bad spending habits for these videos by going over to my Ko-Fi. It's not expected, but I would really appreciate anything you can help me with. I am a college senior. The fall semester is starting soon, and those rat bastards have once again hitched up the prices of tuition. So, let's just brush this topic away now. In any case, now we get to talk about someone I mentioned earlier, someone I mentioned I like very much earlier, someone who's pretty dang cool. Who are they? Well... Listen, I said earlier that it's a little upsetting. I wish Sayuri had a full route, but she does have a mini route. Although it's a very, very mini route. So, you know, it's better than nothing. I'm very happy. We get to see more Sayuri. Let's talk about Sayuri. So she's so genuine, always smiling, always looking on the bright side of life. She's just fantastic. She's pretty, kind, polite, caring, great at cooking. She has a nice ass. And to quote Yuuichi on her, Sayuri is a woman to satisfy any man's dreams. Sayuri has a habit of referring to herself in the third person, you know. Sayuri thinks that this is pretty cool. Be like, Sam thinks this is really cool. Sam does think that this is really cool. Sayuri comes from wealth and her pep's a member of the Diet as stated earlier. Prim and proper. On to the story. Well, once you complete Mai's route, there's a little dialogue choice where our dear Sayuri spews out her backstory. And oh boy, it's very sudden. I suppose if you play all through Mai's route again, and then take that dialogue choice, it's softened a little bit, but I had to save, so I just went back and clicked on the new option, and this was sudden. So essentially, Sayuri had a little brother, right, who was mute and died during grade school. Well, that's sad. Sayuri is surprisingly open about her very sad past. And later, that night, as Yuuichi brings Mai food, Mai looks Yuuichi straight in the eye and says, "You're my top guy. I want you to make Sayuri happy." And so, she bluntly tries to get them to go on a date. Sayuri accepts, of course, and proves that she is the strongest gamer. And with that, we get more backstory. So, Sayuri was the one who was more or less to take care of her little brother, right? Her dear old Pep gave her the job of making him proper and well-behaved. And Sayuri was a little harsh because of this with him, even though she really didn't want to be. But she wanted to do her best to be a big sister, follow her Pep's, job. And she always would tell herself, like, "Oh no, we'll do nice things. I'll be nice to him. I'll spoil him. I'll do all this when he's older and he's doing well." However, he's rapidly declining. He's not going to live very long. So she does have a very nice moment with him right before the end. But she really hasn't gotten over that. But it's implied that Yuuichi can help her with that. And then it ends. Very, very mini route, as I said. So here were my thoughts right before beginning the route. Whoa! There is a Sayuri route? This is actually amazing! And then it switched to after the route. That really was a mini route, and wow. That was an entire backstory dumped upon me all at once. A real roller coaster of emotions. I really wish we had a full branching route for her. And now here's the thing. Why Sayuri is best girl, okay? So every time I see Sayuri, I grin. She is everything a Sam could want in a waifu, and she gives Nayuki a run for her money, a big one. Now, I'm re-recording this, right? The first Sayuri script reading thing I recorded, I was very close to the mic, and it constantly peaked and it sounded bad. However, while doing it, I essentially labeled Sayuri below Nayuki, but as I talked, as I said it out loud, as I thunk and pondered, I realized something, and that's that Sayuri is tied with Nayuki. You see, both are endearing in very different ways. You see, Nayuki, it's the trusting and loving side, where she'll always wait for you, and she's just generally there and fantastic. You see, for Sayuri, it's this general positive attitude she has, this aura about her that just makes you smile. Along with the facts, too, she's, as Yuuichi said, any man's dream. Oh, jeepers. You see, Sayuri says something about Mai, right? They're best friends, so they know each other very well. She says, quote, "But that's how sincerely she feels things. She's much deeper than ordinary people." And I believe that can apply to Sayuri also. She cares very, very deeply for her friends. And that is an attitude I very much like. I'm personally of the belief that you don't have a lot of friends. You have a few very good ones. The sort of people that you would skip a day of college for if they needed help, or wake up in the middle of the night for, And that's fantastic. Sayuri is definitely that way, bless her heart. She also has another quote, which I think is a great tie-in to our next segment. Quote, "When we give others happiness, everyone can be happy. Do your best to become happy." Now, if you'll pardon me a ramble, I tried to organize my thoughts nicely on paper a few times, and it didn't turn out quite how I wanted. Kanon made me feel a certain way about quite a few things. It made me think a little bit. And I want to kind of share Kanon's core message with you all, or at the very least how I saw it. And that core message consists of three basic parts, that being memories, miracles, and happiness. And this is the foundation, I think, for most of Key's novels. But it started here. So let's talk a little bit about each one. And to begin with, memory. Now, this novel made me think, which is more important? Past memories, or the memories you're making in the present, now? Well, that's a big part of it, how the past has influenced Yuuichi when he eventually remembers what happened all those years ago, and the girls that are in the story now, how Yuuichi's past actions or what happened to them in the past influences who they are today. Or whether the current experiences of Yuuichi and them hanging out, which is more important. Well, I would generally argue for a synthesis of both, as both are vital for making us who we are. Us. The past we look to for ourselves. All of our memories are the building blocks for who we are currently, and they're what we can look to try to figure out how to improve ourselves. And for the hope of said improvement, we look to the present, and we try to modify our actions to make us into someone that we more want to resemble. Because through this improvement, we can expect happiness to follow. Or rather, I believe that's what we should strive for in our lives when doing so. However, in the interest of being a little more interesting, hopefully, I am going to take the side of either the past or the present being more important. In the context of canon, I'm going to argue that the memories of the past are far more important than the memories of the present. I'll get the most basic argument for that out of the way. Part of the mystery of canon story is what happened in the past and Yuuichi trying to remember. The mystery of that drives the plot. Now, that's not quite as interesting as it can be, so let's extrapolate upon the past memories. All of the girls save Sayuri and Shiori have some connection to Yuuichi from him being there in the past, right? Yuichi's presence, his personality, his force of will, his interactions with the girls have impacted them greatly in some way still to this day, 7 years later. Their past, because of Yuuichi, influences their present to an unprecedented degree. Whether that's Mai, still guarding their childhood play place and defending it against the demons that continually threaten it. Threaten her memories of that simple, fun time growing up with Yuuichi, a bright spot in her dark past. Or Makoto feeling abandoned by Yuuichi and wanting to feel the warmth of human kindness once again, so much so that she gives up basically everything to come and see him again, even if it's for a short time. All due to the kindness Yuuichi showed her in the past. Or Nayuki, who confessed to Yuuichi and was rejected due to unfortunate circumstances. Her past of hanging out with Yuuichi growing up as cousins impacted her so very greatly, and it still continued to impact her all the way up until Yuuichi came back to her, waiting for him and loving him despite the rejection and how sad the past was. Or Ayu, who went comatose or even died that day, shortly before Yuuichi left. Her final wish just being to see Yuuichi happy once again. Maybe, even if she was lucky, to be with him forever after that. If you think about Ayu's wish being for Yuuichi's happiness, you could even see Shiori affected by the past. Because of Yuuichi's kindness to Ayu, Ayu was able to grant Shiori the wish of not dying and being with Yuuichi still. At the cost of her own life a bit, but that's still a miracle caused by the past. The past is like a freight train, and Yuuichi is a cow walking across the train tracks. It's powerful, it's quick, it's oncoming, and it cannot be stopped. It is a force to be reckoned with. The memories of the past in canon coincide, crash, and correlate to the present, and create a happy ending. As Shiori says, when you're halfway through a story, you want to be able to look forward to a happy ending, right? With this, miracles allow for said happiness, that happy ending, to occur. It's a hope for happiness despite circumstance. Perhaps it's magical, perhaps it's mundane. Looking at the magical, as in Kanon's case, well, without a miracle occurring, Kanon's story, in almost every storyline save maybe Nayuki's, and even then that's debatable, would be extraordinarily different. There would not be a happy ending. Eiko and Sayuri, and by extension Mai, would all probably be dead. Along with that, Ayu. However, due to the third wish, due to a tiny miracle, a happy ending is able to find its way into Kanon's reality, to the story, and create something wonderful by the end. And, well, some may argue that's not applicable to the real world, but let me just say this. I've seen a few tiny miracles occur, things that should not have been becoming so. So perhaps Kanon's onto something here. Maybe not as extreme, but the hope for happiness, whether mundane or through a miracle, can lead to it. If you try, or maybe even wish hard enough. Although it's not always so, unfortunately. To quote a Yu, it must be because those ordinary things are going to become special. I'll keep thinking about these times when an ordinary kind of happiness was right before my eyes. That must be why it's so sad. As I was saying, I've seen a few miracles, perhaps. But it is true. The mundane and ordinary rule in most circumstances of our lives, the vast majority. And miracles won't happen. Sadness will occur. Yu will stay in her coma. Shiori will die. Makoto will never get to see Yuuichi again. Mai may also die, or lose the battle with her demons. And Nayuki will lose her mother. Well, what's to be done because of this? Unfortunately, not too much, but let's look to Sayuri. I think she has the answer. Despite her troubling past, despite sadness, despite everything that's occurred, her attitude is to smile, to bring others happiness, and to do your best to be a good person. And that's the key to all of this. Even if a smile in the moment, maybe even at this moment, is fake, it still can bring you and others happiness. A smile is infectious. It can trick your brain. Just smiling to try to become happy or make others around you happy is a skill. It'll take time, it'll take practice, and it's not going to be immediate. It will suck. Real life situations that are awful do suck. But by smiling, by having a positive attitude, by taking things as they are, smiling, even if fake, will eventually bring you real happiness whenever you do it. Will make you feel good by helping others to smile. Or even in a dark moment in your own life, just being able to smile to yourself and think on the good things really can have a certain power over your mind and the situation at hand. I can confirm, eventually a fake smile will turn into a real one. It'll make you feel good and those around you. Fully dedicate yourself to the bit. And eventually, you'll find a big change occurring in your life and in the lives of those around you. It's all a change in perspective. It's one of the most positive changes that can be made to bettering one's life. To quote Sayuri, "When we give others happiness, everyone can be happy. Do your best to become happy." Well, thank you all for sticking around. I've been Sideshow Sam, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.